Hello, welcome back. Today we're here for a very annoying grammar video. But I'm not going to talk about grammar in a very deep way because I don't like it and I don't think it's going to help you so much. Rather, I'm going to explain this word to you in a much more simple and approachable way. Did you hear what I just said? I said I'm not going to do this, rather I'm going to do that. Can you see that in that particular sentence, the word rather meant something like instead? It's not a synonym for instead. It's not the same as instead. No, I'm talking about meaning. I'm not talking about how you're going to use the word. Not at all. It's like, I'm not going to do this, but I am going to do that. This is not what I feel is good. But this, which is something different a lot of the time, contrary to what I said first, is going to help you. But I'm going to explain that to you more in just a minute. First of all, we're going to start with a very simple introduction to the word rather. The thing is, the word is actually rather simple, but it looks a bit scary. I'm going to say that again. The word is rather simple. The word we're talking about today is rather simple, but it looks a bit scary. This sentence is the most basic and easy meaning of rather, and it's got the same meaning as the word quite. So it's less than very. If I say to you, oh, you are very beautiful, this is like very. If I say you are quite beautiful, it's a lot less, okay? So just for you to understand the proportions. So we got that out of the way. I'm going to give you some sentences using rather and using quite because they are the same, just for you to see that they are really just interchangeable. If you prefer to say quite, go for it. If you prefer to say rather, go for it. Rather sounds fancy. You know, it can be quite formal as well. Quite formal, I could have said rather formal as well. But it's very good to know. Here are my sentences. I am quite interested in the job. Exactly the same as saying I am rather interested in the job. She said she was quite late. Exactly the same as she said she was rather late. So you see, it's still giving you some sort of power. So I'm quite interested in the job. I am rather interested in the job. You know, it means you are interested in the job. But when you say I'm very interested in the job, it's like, whoa, very. As much as I'd like to go, I'm quite busy today. The same as much as I'd like to go, I'm rather busy today. So you can't go because you're busy. Now this next one is a bit of a pronunciation challenge for you, okay? It's quite quiet here today, but I'm going to say it in a fast way because I don't say it like that in real life. It's quite quiet here today. Quite, quiet. They're different. Quite, quiet. Different sounds. It's quite quiet here today. The same as it's rather quiet here today. So it's not busy. It's the opposite of busy. You know, lots and lots of people. Wow, it's so busy here. Not many people. Quiet. The journey lasted quite a long time. The same as the journey lasted rather a long time. So you can use it for everything. It's very, very easy to use. The second meaning is giving you some sort of correction. Like you say something and then you want to correct what you said because you said it wrong or because the information was not accurate, was not right, or maybe you just want to add some information, you know, to give a little bit more detail. We use rather. Let me show you. I'll say to you something like, you should wash your hair every day, or rather, at least try. You should wash your hair every day, or rather, at least try. This means I'm saying to you, the first thing I'm saying is, you should wash your hair every day. And then I say, or rather, because I'm going to correct myself, at least try. Maybe you won't be able to wash your hair every day, but you should at least try. You see, it's like a small correction. Something about me when I lived in London, okay? I worked in a shop, or rather a boutique. Because it was a shop, but a boutique is something more specific. Plus it was very fancy. I worked in a shop, or rather a boutique. Or rather, you know, I'm adding information and correcting what I said at the same time. The manager is Brazilian, or rather his dad is. So the manager is not actually Brazilian, but his dad is. See, I'm correcting what I said. The manager is Brazilian, or rather, his dad is. That's very used. It's important that you know this because you are going to hear it. If you're not comfortable using it yet, fine. Nothing to worry about, but you have got to know this exists at least, okay? Now there's something very, very used, which is would rather. So you use rather together with would. And the meaning of this is exactly the same as prefer. So the structure is a bit different, and that's why I said it was a grammar video, because you have got to pay attention to the structure, otherwise you're going to get it wrong. But the meaning is exactly the same. So there is no difference between using prefer or would rather in most sentences. Let me give you some examples about that. I prefer starting early if you don't mind. I prefer starting early if you don't mind. I prefer starting, you see, or I prefer to start. Both are okay. However, when I use would rather, it sounds like this. I would rather start early if you don't mind. I would rather start early. There is no ing, there is no to, so pay attention here, okay? I'd rather start early if you don't mind. Although we're in a hurry, I prefer finishing this before we go. And if you say would rather, it would sound like this. Although we're in a hurry, I would rather finish this before we go. I would rather finish this before we go. Now I'm going to tell you 3 sentences using would rather, and I want you to find a similarity amongst them. There is something in these 3 sentences that is different to what I just said in the previous sentences. And I want you to listen close, rewind, listen again, maybe write the sentences down so you can see them, to help you understand something very important and very annoying about grammar. Would you rather I didn't say anything then? I'm going to ask again. Would you rather I didn't say anything then? Second sentence. They would rather she didn't spread the news. They would rather she didn't spread the news. Sentence number 3. My boss reassured me he'd rather we spent more time on this. My boss reassured me he'd rather we spent more time on this. Have you found it? Have you noticed anything about these 3 sentences that is different to what I'd said before? Did anything catch your attention? No. It's okay, I'll tell you what it is. Here we go. Grammar rule. If you're using would rather and there's more than 2 people involved in what you're saying, the second part of the sentence requires you to use the verb in the past, even though you're not talking about the past. I'm going to say the sentences again for you to notice what I'm saying. Would you rather, so would you rather, it's about you. The first part of the sentence is about you. Would you rather, now the second part, I didn't say anything then. So it's about me. There are 2 people involved, see? Would you rather, one part, I didn't say anything then. So I have to use the verb in the past. So I said didn't. That's the past, isn't it? Didn't say anything then. Grammar rule. Now the second sentence. They would rather, so they is the first pronoun we're using here. They would rather she didn't spread the news. She is the second person involved. She didn't spread the news. Now for the third one. My boss reassured me he'd rather, he'd is he would, he'd rather, so it's about he first, right? We spent more time on this. So then I'm talking about we, so I have to use spent, which is the past. My boss reassured me he'd rather we spent more time on this. So this kind of structure is so annoying. I know it's difficult, you're going to forget, you're going to say it wrong, but just write some sentences about your life using this particular structure. It's going to help you immensely. Now, can you imagine using prefer and rather in the same sentence? It's possible, and I'm going to show you why. I prefer British English rather than American. So here I'm not using would rather, I'm using rather than. I'm using this to compare, okay? So I prefer British English rather than American. That's just my personal opinion. Let's not fight about this. Another sentence. I thought she preferred the pink one rather than the red. I thought she preferred the pink one rather than the red. And of course, I'm just giving you two sentences using prefer, but you could use this with anything. I went to the theatre rather than the cinema. See? I'm using two things, I'm kind of comparing them in a way instead of the cinema. You see what I mean about instead as well? It's not the same, but it gives you a very similar meaning to those two words. Yes, so this word is important. You cannot run away from rather. Embrace it and start small. Start using rather as the same thing as quite, because that's very easy to use. So start there, write your sentences. You can always leave your comment with a sentence for me to have a look and try to help you if it's wrong. And just start listening so you can notice how people are using this. There's more to rather than what I said today, but there's no way I'm going to do a half an hour grammar video to fry your brains. I'd rather just come here. I did not plan on saying this. I'd rather just come here and share some things with you that I feel will actually help you. All right, thank you so much for being here today, and I really hope to see you all next week. Bye.